It's a story that's attracted one of Hollywood's finest directors. In 1972, at the Munich Olympic Games in Germany, Palestinian gunmen slaughter 11 Israeli hostages. For Israel, it's a game changer.
The whole country stood still.
The country was in shock, really.
The movie shows how an outraged nation sends its top agents to kill the terrorists.
It was setting this precedent of no matter how long it's going to take, we're going to get you.
But what Hollywood presents as a campaign of righteous revenge is, in reality, a much darker, murkier affair. This is the real story of what happened when Israel set out to avenge the Munich massacre. Los Angeles, 2005. Universal Studios in Hollywood holds a charity showing of Steven Spielberg's blockbuster movie, Munich. Daniel Craig and Eric Bana star as members of a small team of heroic Israeli secret agents.
Playing an Israeli, I felt like I really had to understand the history of that region. It's one of the good parts about this job, that you are forced to learn about things that you didn't know enough about initially.
Craig and Banner's characters are out to avenge the murder of 11 Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Olympic Games. It's a film about revenge and the pursuit of justice. But the real story is much more complex and controversial. August 1972. Spectators arrive for the 20th Olympic Games. They're being held in Munich. It's the first time Germany has hosted a premier world sporting event since before the end of World War II. It's a chance for Germany to promote itself as democratic, optimistic, and progressive. For one team of athletes, it's a particularly significant moment.
27 years after the Holocaust, an Israeli delegation with the flag of Israel will march on German soil in the Olympics. On the other side, from the German, it was very important for them also to show that they are welcoming the Jewish or the Israeli delegation in a very nice way.
One of the Israeli athletes is fencer Yehuda Weinstein.
It is a great honor to participate in Olympic Games as a sportsman. I didn't expect to win, but I wanted to get to the quarterfinals. That was my aim.
Among the crowds is the wife of the Israeli fencing coach, Anki Spitzer.
I remember my husband, when he was chosen to go there, he said, it's a dream. I've never thought in my life that I would get there. It was something enormous. The dream came true, to meet athletes and talk to them. And there were no borders, nothing.
Within days, the dream will become a nightmare. In the early hours of September the 5th, 8 masked gunmen break into one of the dormitories of the Israeli team. One Israeli athlete is shot dead immediately. 9 are taken hostage. The gunmen are members of Black September, a terrorist faction of the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
The defining moment is that image of the guy coming out with the black mask on his head, hanging out in that balcony, looking out. That's the image which is sort of seared into people's memory.
In a neighboring dormitory, Yehuda Weinstein is woken by gunfire. He tells his colleagues he's making a break for it.
And I said, okay, I will run out. If they don't shoot me, I will give you a sign and you'll come after me. The most distinctive feeling which I remember, you're running and you feel that in a second you're going to be hit by bullets already. But nothing happened.
Next morning, the world learns the horrifying news. Ankie Spitzer awakes to hear her husband is one of the hostages.
I sat in front of the television. I had one television with the German program, one with the Dutch program, one radio next to me, and trying to figure out. And it was terrible because I had no clue what was going on.
Within hours, the gunmen announce their demands. They want the release of some 250 Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. The German authorities open negotiations, but they are neither trained nor equipped for this situation.
It came to a shock to the Germans. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have a clue how to behave with the Palestinian terrorists at the time.
But they do develop a plan. They promise to fly the terrorists and their hostages to Egypt, on the understanding the hostages will be released when they reach Cairo. The terrorists and their hostages are taken by helicopter to a military airfield. But the Germans have set a trap. Snipers are positioned overlooking the runway. One of the hijackers shoots out the spotlight, plunging the airfield into darkness. At around midnight, there's a dramatic announcement.
Suddenly, on all the TV stations, the official spokesman of the German government, Konrad Ahlers, I'll never forget that name, he comes on TV and he says, "We had a very difficult day, but I'm very happy to announce that the end is very well because all the Israelis are saved and all the terrorists are dead."
We were really very happy. There were tears of joy with some of the people. And we went to sleep because we were very tired.
But 3 hours later, the story changes.
The chef of the delegation came over and said the rescue operation was a flop and everyone is dead. And that was a real shock.
All the Israeli athletes have been killed. including Ankie Spitzer's husband, Andre.
At 3:10 in the morning, I heard the announcer and he said, of 11 people were taken hostage, 2 were murdered in the Olympic Village and 9 were murdered now at the airport. All of them are gone. Every time I'm amazed how vividly I remember it and how difficult it is for me to talk about it still, you know.
The world is united in grief and outrage. But in Israel, the demand is for justice and revenge.
There is a large body of opinion which demands an all-out war against the Palestinian guerrillas. The biblical precept of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth has never seemed stronger in people's minds than it does today.
A wave of horror sweeps the nation.
The whole country stood still. Thousands of people still remember where they were and what they did, because it had an enormous impact in Israel.
It had these, connotation of the Holocaust and Jews being sort of helplessly massacred with nobody there to help them out.
The outrage is felt at the highest level. Senior members of the Israeli government meet in emergency session to discuss a response. Finally, after an emotional debate, Prime Minister Golda Meir reaches a momentous decision.
All the families were invited to the office of Golda Meir. She said, all those people who were involved in the massacre in Munich, we will hunt them down and we will eliminate them. I said, do you mean assassinate them? She said, whatever you like to call it.
That decision to seek revenge is so controversial, many, even today, consider it illegal.
The Israeli decision was outrageous. It's against all international laws, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. You cannot simply go and kill people without trying them.
Yet for many in Israel, the decision is seen as necessary.
It was setting this precedent of what's known as Israel's long arm, which means no matter where you are, no matter where you go, no matter how long it's going to take, we're going to get you.
Golda Meir turns to one of the most ruthless and effective secret services in the world, the Mossad. It's conducted some of the most daring, covert operations of modern times.
All around the world, the CIA, Britain's MI6, the Soviet, Russian KGB, all knew that the Mossad is not just the best intelligence service in the Middle East, but one of the best in the world.
The Mossad made its name in 1960 when it tracked down Nazi death camp organizer Adolf Eichmann in Argentina.
They went in, they found the guy, they confirmed it was him, they grabbed him, they got him out, and nobody knew about it until it was over.
Eichmann was put on trial in Jerusalem and later executed. In 1965, the Mossad assassinated Nazi mass murderer Herbert Sukers in Uruguay.
What the Zuckers episode showed was that no one was out of reach.
Now in autumn 1972, the Mossad turns on those responsible for the Munich massacre. It launches Operation Wrath of God. The man in charge is Mike Harari, head of the Mossad's Special Operations Unit.
He was sort of like the prototype of what you would imagine a Mossad agent to be, sort of daring and cunning and ruthless and brave.
When he was given a mission, he will never say no. He said, I can't say no. He was so focused on the target, he will do it no matter what. If even he will have to go to the moon and come back, he will do it.
Harari draws on the eyes and ears of Israelis across Europe and the Middle East. Thousands of supporters and sympathizers. The names and addresses, loyalties and associates of hundreds of Palestinians pour in. The files mount up.
The Israelis were fine archivists. When they needed names, addresses, and phone numbers, they knew where to go.
Everybody was involved, motivated to gather information, to find out, and to prevent another Munich massacre.
Gradually, the Mossad find that Black September, the group behind the Munich massacre, has close links to Yasser Arafat's Palestinian Liberation Organization, the quasi-official Palestinian government in exile. What they notice is that the Palestinians often don't distinguish between politicians and those involved in terrorist activity.
Some of these people appeared to be PLO diplomats, poets, or intellectuals, but the Mossad had developed information that they really were smuggling weapons or organizing terrorist cells.
Harari draws up a hit list. It contains some 30 names. But one name is conspicuous by its absence. Ali Hassan Salameh is a wealthy Palestinian playboy.
He liked fast cars, blonde women. He even married a Miss Universe, a woman from Lebanon, but he also was cautious, clever, and aggressive.
Salameh is a committed communist. It earns him the nickname, the Red Prince. Intelligence reports suggest Salameh is PLO leader Yasser Arafat's heir apparent. But he's not just a politician.
Salameh was a very dangerous combination. He was the founder, the creator of Black September. So it was Salameh who hand-picked the terrorists who would attack the Olympic Games.
For Harari, the Red Prince is a top priority. But in the fall of 1972, Salameh has disappeared off the radar. So he first takes aim at more accessible targets. The Mossad swings into action. One of the first hits takes place in Paris. Mahmoud Hamshari, a senior PLO representative there, is said to head up Black September in France. He's dispatched with a bomb triggered by his phone. A month later, Harari's agents are in Cyprus. Hussein Bashir, the PLO representative on the island, is believed to be Black September's liaison officer with the Soviet KGB, an important source of weapons. Three months later, the Mossad is back in France. Basil Al-Kubaisi, a law professor, is said to be Black September's quartermaster in Europe. He's shot in the street. But the Mossad also makes mistakes. Weil Zweiter is a poet and translator working in Rome. He's gunned down in the foyer of his apartment block. But he had no clear connection to Black September. Mossad sources will later concede his murder may have been an error.
These are soft targets. Any target was valid for them. They just want to satisfy the public opinion within Israel to say, okay, we have taken revenge for Munich attack.
News of the assassinations meet with mixed feelings in Israel.
I got a phone call in the morning, an anonymous phone call. Somebody said to me, turn on the radio for the 10 o'clock news. So I turned on the radio at 10 o'clock, and then I would hear that one of the Palestinian leaders was assassinated. Now, every time they got some sort of Palestinian leader, I would get this phone call to listen to the news. They thought maybe we get some satisfaction out of this. No satisfaction whatsoever, because this is not what I wanted.
But not everybody feels the same.
I didn't have a comfort, but I think they deserved to die. I think some people deserve to die for what they did. That's my opinion.
Despite the illegality of these murders, the governments in France, Italy, and Cyprus turn a blind eye.
There was no response from the European governments to the Israeli attacks, although their sovereignty, their territorial integrity was violated by the Israelis.
In spring 1973, the Mossad's attention moves closer to home. 3 important new targets are identified. Mohammed Youssef Najjar is a leading member of the PLO. He's suspected of involvement in the Munich massacre. Kamal Adwan is a member of the military wing of the PLO and is believed to be behind several armed attacks on Israel. Finally, there is Kamal Nasser, the PLO's chief spokesman. All 3 targets have been discovered living conveniently close together.
That basically they are living in 2 buildings next to each other. One in the 5th floor, I think, and one in the 7th floor.
The only problem, they're in Beirut, Lebanon. It may be less than 100 miles north of Israel, but it's hostile territory.
Going into Beirut was a big deal because Beirut is the headquarters of the PLO. It's an enemy state. As far as Israel is concerned, you know, that's where all the militant groups hung out.
The Israelis were going into the belly of the beast.
Harari sends in a hand-picked team. Specialists in living undercover. They speak Arabic. They're familiar with the city. They put the targets under 24-hour surveillance.
The Israelis excelled at the tradecraft of the spy game, taking photographs with hidden cameras, taking notes about everything, including the local geography, which streets were one-way streets. It could take weeks, even months, to set up one operation.
Finally, after several months, the operation is ready. Harari calls in the hit team. The job is passed to the Israeli equivalent of SEAL Team 6, the Sayeret Matkal.
Well, Sayeret Matkal has that kind of reputation that they can pull off special operations that are considered beyond the scope of your regular troops.
A Sayeret Matkal team infiltrates Beirut from the Mediterranean Sea. They're met on the shore by Harari's agents. The commandos disguise themselves as tourists. Some are even dressed as women.
One of the guys who was in the operation and famously dressed as a woman, because he was one of the shorter commanders, was Ehud Barak, who at the time was a top soldier in Sayeret Matkal. Later on, as we know, became the defense minister and later the prime minister. And hand in hand, they walk through downtown Beirut, dressed as lovers, as couples.
They divide into 3 groups, one for each target.
The Israelis knew that the best way of preventing the Palestinians from sounding the alarm was to hit all 3 targets simultaneously.
At 1:30 a.m., they strike.
They went up very fast, each team to its own apartment. They burst into the apartment at the same time, looking for the guys, knowing where is the bedroom.
Mohammed Yusuf Najjar and his wife are gunned down in their bedroom. Across the street, Kamal Adwan is killed in his second-floor apartment. 1 floor above, Kamal Nasser is also shot dead.
They're basically saying, we can get you wherever we want. We can walk into your homes, you can be sleeping in bed next to your wife, we can put a silencer to your head in a foreign country, and we'll get to you.
It's a powerful statement, but the death of Kamal Nasser may have been a strategic error. He'd supported a peaceful transition to a Jewish Palestinian state.
He was one of the few leaders who were managing and succeeding in addressing the international community, especially the public opinion in Europe.
But there's also been a major Israeli intelligence failure. 50 yards down the street is Ali Hassan Salameh, the Red Prince. The Mossad had no idea he was there. One of the ringleaders of the Munich massacre is still at large. Then there's a new development. In the summer of 1973, Mike Harari, head of the Mossad Special Operations Unit, hears that Black September is planning an operation in Scandinavia. There are reports that Ali Hassan Salameh, the mastermind behind the Munich massacre, is staying in the small Norwegian town of Lillehammer. It's too good an opportunity to miss, but the timing is awful. Many of his best agents are on leave.
He could have come and say, listen, I'm stretched to my limits. I can't do it, I can't do it. Sorry, what I can do. I'm doing this and this and this and this. But Michael couldn't say no.
He decides to make the best of what he's got. To make matters particularly difficult, he needs agents who look Scandinavian. There aren't many of these.
This meant that some members of the hit team were not the most professional.
It's not that they weren't good, but they weren't supposed to do this kind of mission.
One agent that Harari picks is Marianne Gladenkopf, a data processor who has only recently emigrated to Israel from Sweden.
She was a rookie, as you say.
Another agent is Dan Ert, a Dane, who is only slightly more experienced.
Harari was taking risks.
In fact, it's so risky, Harari flies to Norway to supervise the operation in person. In Lillehammer, members of the surveillance team stake out the Caroline Cafe in the town centre. They have information Salameh will be there. Gladenkopf has a picture of him. She thinks she sees the man. She can't be certain. But the match seems good enough.
There really weren't excellent photographs of this elusive red prince, yet they felt certain it was Salome.
She alerts Harari, waiting in a nearby hotel. Harari, determined not to waste the opportunity, orders the assassination for the next day. The next evening, agents watch Salome leave a Lillehammer flat, accompanied by a pregnant woman. They track the couple through empty streets to a local cinema. Harari coordinates the operation from his hotel room. At 10:30 p.m., Salome and the woman reappear.
As the couple emerged from the movie theater, the Mossad spotters were watching and felt that their chance had arrived.
Harari is informed. He calls in the hit team. Minutes later, they see the couple approaching. They make a final check. Harari gives the go-ahead.
They didn't say a word to his wife. They simply fled.
News of the hit is immediately relayed to Harari. With the kill confirmed, he leaves for Sweden by boat. Early the following morning, Harari wakes to horrifying news. Norwegian radio reports the first murder in Lillehammer for 40 years. The victim, a Moroccan waiter called Ahmed Bouchiki, shot in front of his wife who was pregnant with their first child. Harari has killed the wrong man. And there's more bad news to come. Within hours, most of Harari's team are arrested, including Gladenkov and Ert. It's one of the worst humiliations in the Mossad's history. So far, the world has turned a blind eye to Israel's campaign of assassination. Now, it can no longer ignore it.
Nobody likes it when you invade their sovereignty. Nobody likes it when you come into their country and do your own bidding there. But as long as you're going after the bad guys, people can either look the other way or quietly applaud you. The minute you make a mistake, then it all turns downwards.
5 of Harari's agents are jailed. For Golda Meir in Israel, it's a political disaster.
Prime Minister Golda Meir was deeply upset. The image of Israel, murdering people in foreign countries, murdering the wrong man. She told the Mossad to stop the assassinations.
Harari is said to hand in his resignation. But instead, he's ordered to sort the Mossad out. As for Salome, the Red Prince, nobody has any idea where he is. It looks as though he will get away with the Munich massacre. Then 4 years later, Israel gets a new prime minister. Menachem Begin is well acquainted with terrorism.
Begin wasn't afraid of secret missions or using violence. Before Israel was established, he'd been the head of an underground group branded as terrorists.
In the 1940s, his group had bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, the headquarters of the British administration in Palestine. 91 people died. 30 years later, Begin knows the attack on the Munich athletes is still an open wound in the Israeli psyche. Harari is back in business. In the summer of 1978, there's a breakthrough. Reports reach Harari. Salome is living openly in Beirut. It's the chance he's been waiting for. Harari inserts a carefully selected team. He can't afford another disaster. They will travel under a variety of passports, including British and Canadian. In all, some 14 Mossad operatives arrive in the city. The lead agent is a woman known as Erica Chambers. She rents an 8th-floor apartment overlooking Becker Street, just down the road from where Salome and his wife are living. Foreigners in Beirut can be viewed with suspicion, but Chambers takes on the guise of a harmless eccentric. She spends hours apparently painting the Beirut skyline from the balcony of her flat. She's often seen on the streets caring for stray cats, while actually keeping a minute eye on what's going on around her.
There are many forms of cover that a spy can use. One of the most effective is to act eccentric, dotty, maybe a little crazy, feeding stray cats, painting paintings. That was Erica Chambers' cover.
The agents track Salome through a fashionable district of Beirut with his new wife, a former Miss Universe. 6 years after the Munich massacre, he's grown soft.
The Mossad felt that Salome had become complacent, no longer changing his daily routines.
Slowly, the Mossad team build up a pattern. On most days in the late afternoon, Salome leaves his flat. He heads up Rue Verdun, past Chambers' apartment, and turns into Rue Madame Curie. Gradually, they hatch a plan.
They said, let's put a bomb in a car along this route and we'll explode it with a remote control when he will pass.
Salome's movements are checked and rechecked. The Mossad identify one obvious place to attack, directly below Chambers' apartment on Becker Street. It's time to bring in the bomb. Under cover of dark, Israeli frogmen slip ashore. They bring with them a package containing explosives and detonators. They rendezvous with 2 agents with a hired car. The bomb is carefully placed in the trunk. It weighs 30 kilos. Harari is taking no chances.
If you need a kilo, use a kilo, but it's better to have 1.5 kilos, you know, to be on the safe side. That mission will be completed in the way you want it to be.
The bomb is carefully primed. It will be triggered remotely by radio. Several days later, the car is driven into central Beirut.
They parked it just below Erica's apartment. She could look out and decide when to detonate the radio-controlled bomb.
In Jerusalem, Harari gets a call. Everything is in place.
On the day of the attack, much to the relief of the Israelis, Salameh was following his daily routine.
At 3:50 p.m., his car approaches Chambers' apartment.
The women combatant were sitting in the balcony waiting for him.
She pushed the button. It was a massive explosion.
Salameh is rushed to the hospital. He's conscious, but riddled with shrapnel. Half an hour later, the Red Prince is pronounced dead. 7 years after its launch, Operation Wrath of God has got its man. Yet for all its apparent success, Harari's huge bomb also has unintended consequences. Not only are Salameh's 4 bodyguards killed, but so too are 4 innocent bystanders, including a British student and a German nun. A further 16 people are injured in the blast.
I remember very well when he was assassinated in Beirut. For me, okay, one guy less who is involved in terror and making life hard for other people. I didn't cry about it, but I didn't take out the flag either. No, I didn't raise the flag either.
Israel has never accepted responsibility for the explosion. And to this day, it continues to deny the existence of Operation Wrath of God.